Polio is a disease that has gone by many names throughout history. You might have heard it called infantile paralysis, poliomyelitis, or even Hein-Madan disease, named after Jakob Hein and Karl Oskar Madan, two doctors who studied the illness in the 19th century. These names reflect the long-standing struggle to understand and define polio. While many believe polio is a thing of the past, eradicated everywhere except a few countries, the reality is more complex. The virus and its effects persist in various forms, and its history is deeply intertwined with medical advances and public health efforts. Let's explore how polio's story is far from over. Despite what we're often taught, polio hasn't vanished. In fact, the virus is still present worldwide, often hiding behind other names and diagnoses. Conditions like Guillain-Barré syndrome, enterovirus C, echovirus, and Coxsackievirus A7 are all linked to the poliovirus. Even hand, foot, and mouth disease can be connected. Polio didn't simply disappear, it's been reclassified and misunderstood. The virus has always lived in human intestines, quietly circulating and sometimes causing illness. This hidden presence means that polio's impact is broader and more persistent than many realize, challenging the narrative of complete eradication. Poliomyelitis isn't just one virus. It comes in three main types: Brunhilde, Lansing, and Lyon viruses. Each type has its own characteristics, but all can lead to the same devastating effects. Interestingly, some populations, like certain Indian tribes and people from the Philippines, have all three strains in their bodies but show no signs of disease. This observation puzzled researchers like Dr. Sabin, who wondered why these groups remained healthy despite carrying the virus. The answer lies in a complex mix of genetics, immunity, and environmental factors, which we'll explore further as we trace polio's history. The late 1800s, the United States faced an unexpected ecological disaster: the introduction of the Gypsy moth. Brought from Europe by Etienne Leopold Trouvelot in hopes of boosting the silk industry, the moth quickly escaped and spread, devastating forests. With no natural predators, the Gypsy moth became one of North America's most destructive pests. Communities responded with creative solutions, like egg-scraping parties, but soon turned to chemical pesticides. This environmental crisis set the stage for a new chapter in the story of polio, as the use of toxic chemicals began to rise. Fight against the Gypsy moth led to the widespread use of chemical pesticides in the United States. Starting in the late 1800s, farmers used compounds like Paris green, a mix of arsenic and copper, to battle pests. Soon, even more potent chemicals like lead arsenate were introduced. These pesticides were sprayed everywhere, on crops, in forests, and even directly on animals. There was little concern for toxicity or long-term effects. This era marked the beginning of a close relationship between environmental toxins and human health, a connection that would become crucial in understanding polio outbreaks. In the early 1900s, cases of polio began to rise in areas where pesticides were heavily used. In Vermont, not only people but also horses and chickens showed symptoms. Children experienced seizures and convulsions, signs more typical of pesticide poisoning than classic polio. The connection between chemical exposure and polio-like illnesses became increasingly clear. Yet, at the time, there was little regulation or awareness of the dangers. Farmers mixed lead and arsenic freely, and the spread of polio seemed to follow the path of pesticide use across the country. As pesticides like lead arsenate became more common, polio outbreaks seemed to follow their use. The disease spread alongside the expansion of the Gypsy moth, moving from the East Coast to the Midwest. Wherever these chemicals went, new cases of polio appeared. By the 1920s and 1930s, even more toxic substances like Tryparsamide, containing mercury and arsenic, were given to children for various ailments. Widespread acceptance of these dangerous treatments highlights how little was understood about the long-term effects of environmental toxins on public health. Introduction of DDT in the 1940s marked a new era in pesticide use. DDT was hailed as a miracle chemical, capable of killing insects like flies and mosquitoes with unprecedented effectiveness. It was sprayed everywhere, on crops, in cities, and even directly on people. After World War II, the United States had a surplus of DDT and used it liberally, believing it was safe. However, DDT, like arsenic, enabled the poliovirus to proliferate more effectively, increasing the risk of outbreaks. This connection between chemical exposure and disease would become a major focus of later research. After the war, DDT was sprayed across the United States with little restraint. Planes dusted entire cities, vegetables, and even beaches where children played. The goal was to eliminate pests and prevent diseases like typhus, but the unintended consequences were severe. In places like India, DDT remains widely available, and polio is still a problem. The link between environmental toxins and polio outbreaks became more apparent, as areas with heavy pesticide use saw higher rates of paralysis and illness. The story of DDT is a cautionary tale about the risks of unchecked chemical use. Research in the mid-20th century began to suggest that polio might be more than just a viral disease. It could also be a result of environmental toxins like pesticides. Studies showed that combining the poliovirus with DDT made the virus more effective at causing disease. The production of pesticides soared, and so did polio cases. Use of iron lungs, early ventilators, became common for children and adults with severe paralysis, but these machines could only help them breathe, not cure the underlying problem. The connection between toxins and polio challenged traditional medical thinking. 1974, Monsanto introduced glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, a powerful herbicide. Glyphosate is now found in most GMO foods and is used widely on crops like corn, soy, wheat, and oats. Its presence in our food supply has raised concerns about potential links to health issues, including autism and mitochondrial dysfunction. Studies have found glyphosate in the cells of nearly everyone tested, and its effects on human health are still being debated. The story of glyphosate echoes earlier concerns about DDT and arsenic, highlighting the ongoing risks of chemical exposure. Not everyone exposed to the poliovirus or environmental toxins develops severe illness. Genetic factors play a significant role in determining who is most at risk. The presence of certain genes, like CD155, the poliovirus receptor, can influence whether an infection remains mild or leads to paralysis. Other genetic variations affect immune responses and cell death pathways. People are also more susceptible to vaccine injury due to their genetic makeup, especially when exposed to pesticides and heavy metals. Understanding these genetic factors is crucial for unraveling the complex story of polio. One of the most surprising aspects of polio's history is how its definition has changed over time. When the polio vaccine was introduced, the medical establishment redefined what counted as polio. Cases that would have been labeled polio in the past were now diagnosed as other conditions, like Guillain-Barré syndrome, Coxsackievirus, or heavy metal poisoning. This shift in definitions led to a dramatic drop in reported polio cases, but the underlying illnesses remained. The story of polio is as much about changing narratives as it is about medical breakthroughs. Vaccines are often credited with eradicating polio, but the reality is more nuanced. While vaccines played a role in reducing cases, changes in diagnostic criteria and improvements in sanitation and nutrition also contributed. Some researchers argue that the decline in polio was as much about redefining the disease and addressing environmental factors as it was about vaccination. The debate continues, with some experts emphasizing the importance of vaccines and others highlighting the role of toxins and public health measures. Understanding polio's history requires looking at all these factors together. Today, there are two main narratives about polio and vaccines. The first, supported by modern medicine, sees vaccines and drugs as essential tools for protecting health. The second narrative warns that these interventions may contain harmful toxins and could contribute to disease. Both perspectives urge us to study the history and science behind polio carefully. The truth is complex, shaped by changing definitions, environmental factors, and evolving medical knowledge. To fully understand polio, we must look beyond simple explanations and consider the broader context of public health, science, and society.
Welcome. Today I'll show you exactly how to join Beautique and make your first purchase. I'll guide you through every step, from choosing your account type to completing your order. Start by opening the main menu to explore our mission and the products section. You can join as a customer for rewards or as a member to start your own business. The sign-up form is straightforward. Just enter your contact details and shipping information. Members will also provide a few extra details to set up their independent distributorship. Once registered, browse our full catalog and select the high-quality products you'd like to try. Once logged in, simply find your favorite products, add them to your cart, and click Checkout Now to complete your order. You're now ready to start your journey with Beautique. We're excited to have you with us.